So I was just talking about Dallas and Detroit. So I mean, the margin of the scoring margin, the loss by Dallas automatically makes people go, "What's wrong with Dallas?" But couldn't that simply be what's right with Detroit?
Yeah, maybe. There's some of that there. I mean, there's a lot right with Detroit. There's a lot wrong with Dallas.
I agree with that.
And by the way, the last time I believe they lost by 38 points at home, Wade Phillips got fired that week, and it was to Mike McCarthy and the Packers, which is just wild. I think Jerry Jones said he was all in this offseason,
right?
2024, and what he meant it was like, all right, we're just all in on what we've got, and right now the defense just isn't very good,
nope.
And it's easy to me to draw a line here. The defense was terrible with Mike Nolan under Mike McCarthy, and it almost cost him his job. Goes out and gets Dan Quinn, brings him in. Defense is very good for a long time. And then Dan Quinn goes to Washington, and Washington's good. Yep. And now the defense is bad again. DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons being hurt certainly doesn't help the Cowboys' case, but this isn't a good defense. And right now, the bigger problem is that the only way they were going to win that game against Detroit is if Dak Prescott and the offense were capable of outlasting the Lions in a shootout. They didn't do that. Jared Goff, by the way, 157.5 passer rating over the last two games, highest in NFL history for a 2-game span, which is wild.
Well, one of them was a perfect. Actually, last week wasn't perfect, right? It was just short of perfect, even though he was like 18 for 18.
Oh, no, last week. So he was perfect yesterday with 153.8, and he was not perfect last week, even though he was 18 of 18. And caught a touchdown pass, which is maybe the system is a little broken. But yeah, Goff's been awesome. The offensive line's been awesome. They have Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. They are loaded at wide receiver. Aiden Hutchinson being done for the year, and that's what we probably think it is. I mean, even though they didn't offer a timetable. I mean, a broken leg. He best case he's like back by the Super Bowl, I would guess.
Exactly.
But that's a big blow. They're probably going to need to go out and get a pass rusher. Aleem McNeil is playing awesome football right now. Former Pack standout. I mean, I don't know if the Browns are trading him, but maybe Hassan Reddick. I think that's maybe a concern. But the back end of the Lions defense has gotten better with Armstead, who they added in the draft. Brian Branch looks awesome, and so this Lions team is just really complete, and they're a really good football team. So yeah, I mean, like to your point. The beatdown says a lot about how good the Lions are. I think it also says, man, the Cowboys just aren't there yet. The division's still wide open, but Jerry said he's not making a coaching change. If the Cowboys keep losing like this, he will.
Right, and this is the weird thing about the NFL. Jets made a coaching change. Do I think it's going to matter? I just don't know what coaching changes midstream. I mean, maybe I don't remember it working. I just don't know what you're going to do midstream to change to get back on course. I mean, I guess the best example of a team significantly playing better was the Panthers a few years ago when they went to Steve Wilkes and then didn't hire him.
Well, I would argue that the best example would be the Raiders firing John Gruden with a scandal midseason.
Right.
Rich Bisaccia going 7-5 down the stretch, and they were 3-2 with Gruden anyway.
Right. Okay, but you're firing Gruden for a different reason. You're not firing Gruden for poor coaching.
Yeah, I mean, look, what happens when you have and Antonio Pierce got team played well down the stretch for him last year, and that's why he got the head coaching job. It's sort of like that Arrested Development meme where it's like he's like. I often advise my couples, he's like, this never works. Like trying an open relationship. He's like, well, did it work for them? No, it never does. But it might work for us. And it's just not going to. And like the worst case is if your interim coach, and in this case, it would obviously be Mike Zimmer, but what has he done to deserve the job?
Oh my gosh, you should fire Mike Zimmer.
Right. And so like if the interim coach gets the most out of the team, what happens is you fire a coach, everybody gets scared and panics. You get sort of a rah-rah leadership role because somebody's in there temporarily and playing with house money. Everybody's trying harder. We've seen that with the Panthers several times, and many other teams, at least like immediately, right? And you end up like in a situation where you basically have to hire the interim, or like you can the interim and go get it. So it really doesn't work. So I think Jerry will try and write it out with Mike McCarthy. Remember, the only reason he fired Wade Phillips is because he was worried Jason Garrett was going to leave if Jason Garrett didn't get the job, and he loved Jason Garrett.
Right.
So I think that's probably more about it. Jerry's not one to, he doesn't like to fire guys midseason. Nobody does.
No, it could again, because it generally does not work. It does not put playoff teams back on track to be playoff teams. I mean, you could be a train wreck, and then like what Steve Wilkes did, they went 6-6 in the games he coached, which is fine. You know, they simplifies things, and they probably didn't win a lot of games against good teams, but who cares? I just don't think that's a course of action for Dallas. As good as they're going to be, is as good as Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are going to be, and they certainly weren't very good in this game. Couple of other games I want to get to, and we'll get to the Panthers here in a sec. Drake May didn't stink up the joint. I mean, it certainly wasn't awesome, but he threw a couple of touchdown passes. He got knocked around a little bit. I wouldn't have started him. I wouldn't have played him until toward the end of the season, not behind their offensive line. But as a first start in the NFL for a bad team against a good team, that wasn't terrible. Yeah,
I mean, look, they got blown out by the Texans, and the score was 27-7 before Drake May started. Well, I guess he threw to Kayshon Boutte. He threw a touchdown pass in the second quarter, but most of it was in garbage time.
Still,
he ran the ball well.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with the Patriots is, if you're gonna bring Drake May, like if you're gonna not start Drake May at the beginning of the year when your team is completely healthy, then why don't you wait and follow the actual plan that you have for Drake May? It doesn't make any sense to me to get 5 games in and say, oh, well, we stink. Let's pull the ripcord and start Drake May against the team that generates more quarterback pressure than anyone else in the NFL. Yeah. Like, started the week before against a worse defense. So I
total
thought
panic move.
Yeah, and like your offense, you lose David Andrews, so your center's out for the season. You don't have any, real weapons at the skill positions. You lose Ramondre Stevenson, so you're losing your best running back. I just thought that the approach by the Patriots was kind of silly, although Drake May, very talented. Wouldn't be surprised if he has a great career. And I think I'm always in favor of playing the young guys. Like, and obviously I'm a Jacoby Brissett guy, but you draft Drake May where you draft him, start him right away. If he's gonna struggle and not be a good player over the long term because you don't have the weapons in place and you don't have the offensive line in place, you might want to think about whether you should have drafted him in the first place. And then two, like if that's the case, then you need to be absolutely convicted in or absolutely sure in your convictions, and you sit him for the year, or you start him right away. This sort of haphazard direction to me makes me question the front office and the coaching staff and who's pulling the strings on when Drake May starts.
Yeah, I just feel like you're probably listening to voices you shouldn't be listening to.
Right, fans and owners.
Yeah, they honestly, you let him sit, let him play the last game of the season, right? But whatever. Hope as long as they don't break him. Because, my stance has been that the Panthers broke Bryce Young, and we'll never know. He could have stunk anyway. So we're just never going to know.
By the way, I mean, the Panthers essentially, by trading up to the first pick and taking Bryce Young, they passed on C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. Pretty incredible to pass on like 3 of the best rookie quarterbacks in the last 10 years, because all 3 look awesome. Yeah. Jaden Daniels was great against Baltimore. Caleb Williams was incredible in London, and C.J. Stroud just keeps being C.J. Stroud. I mean, great job, Carolina. You nailed that one. It's pretty rare when the first 4 quarterbacks taken in back-to-back drafts, 3 of them look like they're superstars, and you had the first pick out of all of them, and you took the one guy that's not any good. That's good. That's the good stuff right there.
Yeah, but that 4th round pick they drafted Chuba Hubbard with a few years ago. What a great pick that was. I do too. He has been, to me, the MVP, if you could have an MVP for the Carolina Panthers this year. Was that a good enough showing by Washington?
Yes.
So we could like the next 5 games for them, or at least the next 4 games for them. Maybe even the next 5. I mean, Washington shouldn't be any worse. We'll go with 4. They shouldn't be any worse at 8-2 when we get there. If they're legitimately good, they should be 8-2.
Jaden Daniels, the Bears are a good team, and Jaden Daniels versus how's that a 1:00 game? Wow, Jaden Daniels versus Caleb Williams. Is that on? I don't know if it's on CBS. I don't want to suggest it should be flexed, and they get in trouble. But it should be flexed. Yeah, I think if you go next 4 games, Panthers, Bears, at Giants, Steelers at home. Yeah, 2-2 should be worst case there. You got to find a way to win. You hopefully find a way to win 3 of those games. And by the way, NFC North, the best record ever. Or at least since the merger in 1970.
Yeah. Tied for third at 4-2.
yeah, they're 4-2 and tied for third place. It's like, if you're a Bears fan, you're like, we haven't had a quarterback in the history of our franchise. We finally get one, and now everyone in the division decides to be great. Sweet, how cool is that? It's a really good division, and it might be really good for a long time because you have great coaching in Minnesota. They drafted J.J. McCarthy. They believe in him. He'll be there eventually to replace Sam Darnold once he gets back from injury. Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, and Jared Goff in this Lions roster that's just stacked. We've never seen all 4 teams from a division make the playoffs in the same year. It's not inconceivable. It's probably unlikely because they have a lot of games against each other left. So that makes it unlikely.
There's only been 1 division game played. And we're already through week 6. Only one divisional game has been played.
That's just gonna knock one of these teams out. But when you look around the NFC, and you have Atlanta and Tampa will probably sneak one in there. Yeah, it's just gonna be tough playing each other that much to sneak 2 teams in. But it's not impossible.
Real quick about Washington, can't lose at home to the Panthers. Shouldn't lose at home to the Bears if you are legitimately good. At the Giants are probably better than I want them to be. But I still think
Giants defense is legit right now.
But I still think if you're Washington, that's a game you win. And then the game with the Steelers at home. In their last 7 games, played Dallas twice and the Eagles twice. That'll determine whether or not I win my futures bet. All right, let me move on very quickly to tonight's football game. Bills and Jets. Bills are on you don't see a lot of 3-game road trips in the NFL, but the Bills are wrapping one up in New Jersey against the Jets tonight. Jets, their first game with a new play caller and a new head coach, somebody with a beard who I've had never heard of before this year.
Todd Downing called plays for 2 years with the Titans in 2021, and
they ran the ball a lot.
Oh, they were terrible. No, they were terrible.
They ran the ball a lot, which I would argue is what the Jets have needed to do all year long, but have refused.
I think we will see quite a bit of Breece Hall in this game. Worth noting, the Titans, Derrick Henry ran the ball a ton. And by the way, Todd Downing was bad in Oakland too when he was the OC. But whatever. I think we'll see a ton of Breece Hall running the ball, a ton of Braylon Allen running the ball, and the Bills blitz at the lowest rate of any team in the NFL on defense this year, which means that Breece Hall and or Braylon Allen a lot less likely to have to stay in the backfield for pass protection with Aaron Rodgers. I think we see lots of quick hitters to the running backs, and they'll get Garrett Wilson involved as well.
All right, well, if all of that happens, it will only mean that Sean McDermott will screw this game up with clock management at the end. That's all I could think of because that's his specialty.